taking away the money from things that you want and investing that money, right? And just buying the things you need. Because at the end of the day, yes, we can talk about, we want to have uh, better lifestyle, comfort, and more income. But I think for me, uh, hey, and we're back, and I have some thoughts today as usual. And if you follow me right now, you see my videos, and my focus here is kind of to hopefully all of us start getting a little more accustomed and comfortable with investing in our futures, right? Building our long-term wealth, understanding that we've kind of been forgetting about thinking our futures, right? And I think growing up in a minority community, myself, and growing up in an urban community where we didn't have much education and much knowledge of how to change our mindsets where it comes to being investors as opposed to consumers. And I really want to talk about how, although I'm talking about a lot about investing and learning how to invest and building your long-term wealth, we can't forget one crucial step, right? And in order for us to get to that level, or whether to go get to that step, we have to start first by becoming savvy or at least diligent savers. In the economy right now, we're talking about where a lot of the people are talking about different investments, market crashes, what to buy, what not to buy. We forget to talk about one of the most basic things, which is none of this is possible without you saving and learning to save and making it a priority in a sense and putting away. I know growing up, I always heard put away for a rainy day. And that's something that kind of was ingrained in me growing up. When I went to certain jobs, a lot of the veterans they would tell me, "Oh, make sure you save. You're young right now. Make sure you save." And I kind of took that really literally. Like I made it a point in a sense to kind of put money away. And it's hard for us to kind of really understand it because, sometimes we're not getting paid enough money. I mean, you live in a city like I live in New York City, the rents are high. The last thing you're trying to do is save. You most of the time, all your money goes towards your monthly expenses. So, kind of becoming a little bit diligent and understanding, and maybe giving some knowledge and maybe budgeting a little bit better. See how you can save a couple of dollars here and there. It's not gonna get you to become a millionaire, but once you start just getting accustomed to finding out ways where you can kind of cut costs, you become a lot more creative, and then you start obviously becoming just like, I'm not saying we're not gonna go out at all and we're gonna live in a bunker, but you start understanding that you are in control, and I think that's the hardest thing. Once you start changing your mindset from more of a kind of I would say a saver as far as investing wise, and not a consumer, you start to realize how much things we spend on that we kind of don't need. A topic that I really wanted to bring up because I was reading a article about how us millennials are kind of killing off some certain industries that been around for the last 10, 15 years. And we're just kind of like not really adhering to their services or products. One of the companies that was there, a couple of them was you had Applebee's, um, uh, and other companies that I really can't think of right now. But I know Applebee's, obviously it's a chain of restaurants. I know a lot of millennials like myself, we kind of would rather order out, right? We're Uber Eats, or we'll just make something at home. Eating out is not a big priority to us as maybe the generation before us, because to be honest, a lot of millennials like myself, we're trying to figure out how we're gonna save some money for our futures. We're spending on food that or drinks that we can kind of put it away and maybe save some money for ourselves. So although I know we're on the right track, a lot of us including myself, we kind of think about when we go out and whether we want to spend $100 or $200, depending who you go out with, on dinner. Uh, we are more diligent nowadays. But let's not forget to keep that mentality of investing in for the future as opposed to consuming, because we're being bombarded constantly, right? There's so many things we can kind of upgrade, whether it's our cars, whether it's our tech, whether it's laptops, phones, TVs. There's, I would say, more than a handful of things I can update or upgrade right now from my life. So I can imagine anybody watching this. So there's always going to be something new, something better, something more fancier, maybe better, convenient wise, just you name it. There's a lot of things that we can upgrade. But I think understanding what you need and what you want is one of the best ways to look at it. And it's common sense. It's kind of cliche. We hear this all the time. But in order for you to start investing, it's about taking away the money from things that you want and investing that money, right? Things you need. Because at the end of the day, yes, we can talk about, we want to have better lifestyle, comfort, and more income. But I think for me, we can control the income as far as like we can try to get better skills, maybe get another better companies, whatever it may be. But that's kind of we understand that that's kind of not guaranteed, right? More income, it's not going to happen overnight. The only thing you kind of could control is basically how and where you spend your money. The power is your money, right? Personal finance is your money. And something that I think we forget, we kind of let that power go, right? We go out there and we feel like we have to get these latest things and have a certain amount of brand clothes and sneakers and shoes, you name it. There's a lot of things we can get on a daily basis. But I think once first you become aware of your routine and your habits, right? And you can kind of understand, or do I really need this, or is it that I want this? But it was like whenever you want to buy something and you're not sure if you want it or need it, he calls it the 5-day rule. So you go to the store, you look at it, wow, I want this thing. Come back 5 days later, and see if you still want it, and then that can kind of tell you if you needed it or you wanted it. It's happened to me many times when I want to buy something real quick. Maybe my phone might not be working properly, my laptop, my car breaks down. And there's things that I kind of like, well, I just want to get something new, right? I'm going to go get something new. And I just hold off, and 5 days later, I'm like, you know what? I'll go ahead and fix it. I can hold off on that for the meantime. And you kind of just change the way because at the moment when you're frustrated, your first thing is you just want to be, you want to get rid of the problem. You want to just solve the problem. And sometimes solving that problem might bring you further problems. So, let's not forget that. I know I talk about a lot about let's build wealth, let's invest, let's look for ways to grow our wealth. But if you don't do this step, and that is saving, if you don't understand that or kind of practice it, at least in the littlest of ways, smallest of ways, you won't be able to invest. You can't put away some money for yourself or live below your means as much as you can. There won't be extra money for you to invest. And all this stuff about talking about investments and buying and all these things, buying stocks and all this stuff, won't mean a thing because you won't have that money. Now, a lot of individuals just make a lot of money, and that's a whole different story. But if you're like the average millennial like myself, that, average salaries, and you're not really breaking six figures, the most important way to do it and savvy way to do it is learning how to put away some money for yourself, saving for it either way, whether it's an emergency fund or whether it's for your investments. You want to learn those skills. I think this is one of the hardest things for us to do, especially nowadays in our era where everything is just consumerism. We're basically taught how to keep on consuming, and it's very easy. I've done it. I still do it sometimes. We all do it. It's not brain science, right? It just happens. But learning how to have that balance, right? And like, okay, you might want to have this thing, but you don't want to go without your future savings. And it's something I think our parents did a lot better than we did. I'm gonna admit, because my parents, they were really good at it. Immigrant parents, they just didn't consume at all. They came here to work, take advantage of the capitalist country, and just come here to work and build something for the future. Whether it was buy their home or build a business. My parents didn't buy a home; they built a business, and that was on their hard work and savings. And I think for us millennials, it gets a little bit harder nowadays to save, and that's why I want to make a video about it. We're just like not really. There's so many things for us to like. There's so many things and distractions that take away from our savings, right? And it's very easy to get caught up in that. Whether it's our cell phone subscriptions, to whether it's Netflix, Hulu, all these subscriptions that we have nowadays, our parents didn't have that, right? So it's kind of cool to make that distinction, and I always look at it. I always think about that. Although they say that millennials were like not moving the needle, we're not buying homes, we're not building our wealth. They have to understand we have a lot more things that are distracting us from that, right? We have student loans, we have like I said, student loans, so many things, right? When it comes to like memberships to the gym that I have to remember, gym memberships, car loans on the high rise, right? Subscription models, higher rents, so many things you can, so many more bars, so many things to buy, clothing, so many websites. You got Amazon, you got eBay. You have all these things that weren't around when our parents were growing up, so they didn't have much things to like take them away from their plans and their goals. So staying focused on your goals and what your priorities are in the future should be a good reminder for when you have those inklings and that urge to kind of go and buy something that you really don't need. Think about that. If these things weren't around, if nothing was available to you right now, would you want it, right? And that's the way I kind of talk myself out of some certain things. I'm not gonna say I'm perfect. I have a lot of learning to do, but talking about it is really good because I think it helps me understand why we do what we do sometimes. And although we want to build wealth and we want to become obviously a lot more savvy when it comes to investing and building our future wealth, when you practice these skills as far as saving and really being diligent on living below your means, and the funny thing is that the individuals that you see that I think for me that I've dealt with, or what I've interacted with, the higher their income or higher net worth, most of the time, not all the time, they barely care about consuming things. Like they're not really worried about consuming things. More, what they're really worried about is obviously having experiences and continuing to build their wealth. They try to limit having kind of like recurring expenses or things that need maintenance, whether it's like vehicles, pets. I have a dog. But they try to limit things that are going to take away from their income. And maybe we can start looking at it that way and start practicing those type of exercises here and there to have a little bit more extra to invest in our futures. At the end of the day, you want to build, you want to invest, you have to have savings. You can't do that. You can't invest without savings. It's just part of it. So don't forget that crucial step and build your savings. Build that emergency fund. Put away some money because not just for a rainy day, but to build our future wealth. And side note, banks are not the best way, obviously, to save our money. They're not really paying anything. But doesn't mean that savings for emergency should be put into an investment. Investments are never guaranteed. You can lose money, you can win, depends. It's not guaranteed. So you don't want to put your emergency funds in your investments. You want to have a stash of money, as we call it, for an emergency, whether it's a job loss, whether it's obviously something breaks down, your car, whether you have a home, something needs to be fixed, you need that money just for that. You don't want to go into your investments accounts and pull out money that you don't know what that market might be that day. So savings is important. Don't forget about it. I know I didn't talk about it a lot in my last videos, but first start with our savings, and then we start to build after that. So hopefully this was beneficial to you, and you hopefully are listening to me, because if you are, you probably are one of the savers and not that much of a spender. And a side note, apparently, I think they say 45% of Americans are not able to live past 2 months of expenses if they was to lose their job today. So that means we're not the greatest of savers. And I'm coming from experience as well, because I did that. I went through that, and my moment is always gonna be at one moment. My moment of realization was when my car broke down, my transmission, one of my cars, and I didn't have the money to replace it. I had to borrow money to fix the transmission on my car, and that is when I realized I didn't have $1 saved up. And where was my money going? And I was working and two incomes, and I still didn't have the money. And that is kind of when I realized and had an epiphany that I needed to change things. I needed to focus more on getting a little bit more financially savvy and actually doing the work. Because I can learn, I can read books, I can talk about it, but if I do not practice it, it makes no sense. So I hope that little story helped you guys out, and I'll see you next time. Peace.